Hello my friends and welcome to another episode of Adobe Live. I'm your host, Kieran Lewis, a freelance graphic designer based in London. And today we are very blessed to have the awesome Andrea Astarita. Andrea, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm very well. Good to have you here, man.
Good to be here, to be honest. Yeah.
Have you enjoyed your time so far at the D&AD experience?
Yeah, I had a bit of a browse around, the Adobe stand, obviously, really cool. Had some experience on Adobe Express and just got to play around with quite a few things. Adobe Firefly.
It's like Disneyland for creators.
Yeah, all new stuff, all new stuff. So
that's
really
what I love
good.
to hear. Awesome. And what we'll be doing as well today, just get a bit of insight into who you are, what you're about. And what we're doing is for every person that we've got as well that we're having as guests, we want to put a little question to yourself in keeping with the whole D&AD essence. So this idea of making change within our industry. Astrea, what would you say in terms of making a change within your industry? What would you like to see if you could make one change?
If I could make one change, I'm going to talk kind of what I could do, instead of telling people what to do.
I like that.
But
cool.
I would kind of try and, do more change, try and do different things and not kind of stick to the same thing that, it works, but, there is no risk involved. Kind of taking a bit more risk on, the new challenge or what's the next big thing or, mix it up a bit and not just stick to things that we already know. I guess that's kind of like the essence of creating. And, I'm guilty of it myself that, when you're finding something that works, you stick to it.
Yeah, that comfort zone, though.
Yeah, it's kind of finding that step out of that comfort zone and just get kind of creative and take risks,
that's a good answer. I can see as well, even in the chat. I mean, first it'd be terrible of me not to say hello to you lovely folks in there. We've got Oliver, Sean, and of course Tim. So massive welcome. If you are just joining us, get those comments in the chat and I'll get them with Andrea as we're going through the stream. You mentioned some good things there about this idea of, taking risks, adapting and almost being flexible as well in that space. Do you find that's kind of when you're in your own type of work that you do?
Yeah.
Do you do that a lot within how you operate?
I mean, for sure, it's kind of like finding the right balance of, you have to balance work and being creative sometimes. It's like when you get a lot of work, it's all good, but then you're just working and you're not developing in a way. So I think it's always that kind of thing of finding the balance of also just doing stuff for yourself. And then bring that into work and into creating, for other people. And so almost like finding and putting time aside to find those new aspects or new creative
headspace in a way, isn't it? Yeah.
Because if you're always busy working on stuff for other people mostly, I just find it hard to find new inspiration or new tools even. Because you can't go and learn a new program if you don't have time. Or with all this, new AI stuff, for example, it takes time. You've got to sit down and actually put some hours into it.
Of course.
I'd say finding more time to do that and not, just taking on crazy amount of work.
Yeah, it's the balance.
It's the balance, because obviously, we all creative, we all gotta make a living out of this. So it's finding that fine line, and I think in time I'm starting to manage to do it. But I always have to clock myself and.
But your work is incredible.
You work too much.
To be fair, and it's healthy, and I know it'd be great to know in the chat, what you guys folks think at home, because there is that element of maybe overworking, or where is that balance between, thinking I'm doing my best, but actually I'm overdoing it as well. And I know with a lot of your work that you've done, and I'm actually in awe with the stuff that you do. It'd be great to know, tell the audience, what the type of work that you do as well, because maybe any advice for students and grads who are maybe going into a similar space into yourself, what you can maybe give them as advice?
I can only give the advice that kind of worked for me. So, I come from a very different background. I'm not a creative by any means. Back in my other life, I was a tennis player. So
nice.
Completely career switch.
Big career switch.
Yeah, massive. So for me, what kind of worked, I have to give loads of props to social media for me. Kind of, that's the tool that allowed me to just be where I am. Social media is to be taken with a bit of, pinch of salt, because if we do too much social media, then it becomes also a problem.
So let's digest.
It's almost like using it as a tool to, get your message across, or connect with people that you want to connect with, other creatives. That's what kind of helped me progress in my career. Because as my social media progressed, I go to, it kind of opens doors for you. So it's almost like using social media as a tool and not as your life.
It's the only thing you've got. That's interesting, and I guess that comes back to what you said at the beginning about the idea of balance, right?
Yeah.
Of knowing when to tap into that. And I know, with our Adobe Live community, we have a lot of folks that range from students to graduates to in the industry for years. And the beauty as well that you don't have to necessarily be from a creative background or that traditional, like you discussed.
I find it is almost better, because if you're immersed in the creative sort of industry all the time, you kind of go along with what's happening, and it's hard to like tap out of that. So when I see earlier in my career where I wasn't really aware of other creatives, I was just doing my thing. It kind of the end result is slightly different to what everyone else is doing. So it's almost good to be on the outside sometimes because you just look at it differently.
I like that.
When it's in the industry, sometimes it's like everyone is trying to do it that way.
Yeah.
But then
follow the herd in a sense. Well,
because we know it works again.
Sure.
But
the safe
it's
option,
again
right?
taking that risk of what can we do next, or take 2 months off to just like develop something that is slightly different, or at least try, because you might not get there, but you've learned something in that pocket of time.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I try and do.
I'm quite curious. I've got a question for you. It's not off piece, I think. It's going back to, you mentioned about obviously doing tennis and playing. That's what you. Do you think there's an element of obviously different industry completely? But the instance of not creative confidence, but the idea of not competitiveness, but pushing yourself to a limit that you want to succeed. Like that can be across both things?
I'll give you an example of my tennis career, for example, wasn't as successful as my photography career.
Okay.
But if I look back and why, it's probably because in my tennis career I was younger, I wasn't putting enough effort into that thing, I was doing it on and off. If I look at my photography career, I always had like a point that I wanted to get to and kind of a goal. And because of tennis, I didn't allow myself to kind of move away, and like kind of get distracted, because I said to myself, you're gonna end up with the same result, which is not making it. So you just gotta kind of push forward and just do the things that in your previous career or in school you didn't do, and you're like, okay, I gotta do that to then get to the point.
And focus on it.
So even though it's a completely different industry, tennis, or it's a sport, it gives me that kind of like guidance.
A focal point as well.
Having a focal point at all times.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Having an aim, not just like wander and.
And it's difficult though, because you mentioned social media it's your ally, but it can also be, and I know I'm definitely your enemy in a sense, because obviously that idea of comparing, but it's how you utilize it to your advantage and your benefit. That's the sweet spot.
I think there is definitely a period where we all do it. You go through it, you use it intensively, and you get sucked in. But I think over time you get tired of it, so you step away, and I think that's when you realize how to utilize it. But it's almost like you have to go through the process of being sucked in, and then eventually you'll come out of it. Because it is good to being sucked into it, to learn, to meet new people. It is good, but almost like you have to learn how to step back sometimes and not be too. Also, because we end up comparing ourselves too much to other creators and competing, and that's never good. To an extent, but I think we all have a different, line and a different
path in a
background,
sense,
a path. So it's never the same for everybody. So
and just on that, I feel like the irony as well. Obviously, our folks are streaming you online right now. They can see, and I know from the chat, there's a lot of folks obviously here to see you and to obviously understand about you. And even with the beauty of Adobe Live is what we do as well is that regardless of your background and your skill set, you can come here, you can watch, and you can be inspired, right? So even hearing about your upbringing, your background. That's awesome. There is one other question. I'm throwing questions out there. And by all means in the chat, please do get the questions in for Andrea, because I'll throw them as well. I'll try and do a bit of both, juggling there. On your website, I noticed you had this cool quote which really stuck out for me was, I like different, but I'll not settle for average. Which I like that, because I was like, this guy, he knows what he wants. That's cool. And can you elaborate a bit more on that in terms of maybe your work ethic as well?
For sure. I think, again, coming from sport, I know that if you put the work in, you will get a result. But sometimes where you try and be different, just because it's different doesn't mean it's good.
True.
So it's like finding that right balance of it's different, but how do you then make that different really good? So it's kind of like developing into an idea instead of just like, okay, this is different, it's gonna work, and then just expect that it's gonna work. So you almost like gotta keep hammering at it. even if it's like, you know, a new social media trend, a new, like in the practical, you know, you find something that you like, in, you know, 10 videos with that idea might not work. But then on the 11th, you might find a formula that works best, and that works.
You elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, so it's not just, okay, this is different. You know, you've got something, but it's almost like putting the effort in to develop it and make it become something bigger and actually that can bring you something, because that will bring you work, that can bring you, you know, just satisfaction of creating something that's different. So that's kind of the quote.
I remember actually even going back to even, you know, university days, and it's that idea of trying to think of something out the box, right, from creative. And actually, to an extent, there's a lot of things that's maybe been done before, and it's actually thinking of ways you could either improve it or make it better. And that's in itself is the uniqueness coming out of.
But even
ideas.
as what you said, develop an idea. Because, you know, a lot of things have been done, but now we have new tools like, you know, AI. Like
there's a lot of AI today, no?
Oh, so much.
But
it's almost like taking an idea that might have been done ages ago and then applying it to a new software or a new thing.
True.
So redeveloping that idea to more of a modern time. So it's almost like if you're looking for things or new ideas, it almost comes, you know, like but you can't just try a couple and then leave
just sit
it.
back and then just
I think
it doesn't work that way, does it?
Not at all.
Even if AI's help.
I find it that with everything, you know, if you don't put perseverance into stuff, eventually fizzles out and it just goes.
And that's the beauty of our, I mean, we're in our line of work, and I feel like for anyone who is creative, especially in the chat, you know, you've got to enjoy what you do, right?
Yeah,
that is a massive focal point. Like everyone is, even being around the D&AD today, there's a lot of insanely talented individuals, but everyone here, you feel like they all love what they do, right?
Yeah,
Which
and
is
you know, I find that especially, I mean, for what I do, photography, for example, it's something that I love purely because, you know, I started photographing London, for example. But then I started photographing motorbikes because I liked motorbikes. Okay. So it's almost like you have the tool, then whatever your passion is in that time frame of your life, you just do that. So it's not like you've learned photography in architecture and that's all you do for your life, for the rest of your life. You can always use that skill of designing. You know, you could be designing for something and then in 10 years time you get bored because you've done it all. And you're like, oh, if I apply these skills to another industry, then what would happen then? So it's almost like changing.
Very good point.
And if you want to change, you know, we were talking about earlier about making the step of like, you know, just kind of leaving things behind that you are sure of and just moving into a new space.
It's unknown,
Like you know, going freelance after, you know, having a job. It's hard to do it, but you know, if you don't and you don't believe in yourself, then who else is going to believe in it? You got to be the first to believe in it.
I feel like all these quotes as well, the gems you're throwing at us, it's like that's your inner tennis.
Oh, for sure.
I love that coming out.
It's very like motivational.
I love that.
That's my mindset for sure. Like, you know, I spent many years of my life just, you know, working with coaches and like just because when you get to a level especially in tennis where, you know, the first 100 all play really well. The mental game is what makes the difference. So I feel like it's kind of the same.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay.
So if you perseverance again, like once you get to the top creators, then it's like who's gonna. Some people like fall off the wagon, and some people just stop doing it.
Creeps in.
Or some people stop developing. So I think if you keep that aspect of always developing, it will definitely get you places.
Nice. And I feel like for those in the chat as well, by all means, you know, you have to follow up on Andrea and see his progress, because I was in awe of your Instagram, man, and I checked out all the stuff you've got going. There's a lot of cool stuff, so even after the stream, you know, please go out, check him out as well, because there's a lot going on. But just hearing all these stuff that you've been going through and your background, and I think more so your philosophy, like your work ethic, that's something that comes out quite often, like quite significantly, which is quite important to you. I get that vibe.
No, for sure.
Who you are, right?
You know, it kind of collides with the fact that, you know, because I want to put work out because I don't want it to kind of fade away. We all know that social media, especially nowadays, you gotta, you know, keep up with the posting. But then
it's a full-time job though in itself.
But then, you know, it takes away from the discovering side of the creative side. So we're just putting, well, at least sometimes I just put it work out just because I have to post, and that's when I clock myself and I'm like, no,
you filter it. You filter,
because
that's healthy. That's
because
good.
Otherwise, and you know, I'm guilty of sometimes just posting because of posting, but it's
no judgment.
There's no excuse, like, you know. Unfortunately, we play that game of social media, and well, at least I do, and
Yeah.
So balancing is, again, the key.
I feel like there's been so many gems, and we're going to wrap up now, but I mean, there's been so many gems, advice, tips, and I can see from the chat, everyone's been really, really interested in enjoying it as well. And of course, for you to have, be here and to talk to us, the Adobe team.
That was great.
Thank you so much for.
It was a pleasure to be
here. And obviously, you're going to enjoy the rest of the D&AD experience, because there's a lot going on today, right?
Oh, so much. Honestly, I'm gonna get back into Firefly and type away and see what I can come up with.
See, folks, obviously you're seeing us now, but what we can see above us is just like there's a whole, almost like Disneyland, right? For creators. It's a lot out there.
It's artists, it's AI, is just a lot of like-minded people as well.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the best things about these events is interacting with people, talking, about personal experiences, and because you might find out something that you just can't on your own.
Nice. And on a very final note, just to wrap up, where can our lovely folks find out about yourself on social media?
It's aa.vision on both Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Amazing.
So yeah, same handle. We managed that one.
Yeah? You always forget after, don't you? Your brain's like, Andrea, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for having us here. And stay tuned. We're going to have another cool person up as well next. So stay tuned, and we'll see you very shortly. Ciao.
Thank you.
Cool.